Welcome everyone to our March Northside Business Luncheon. Our topic today is prepping for tax season, business accounting. My name is Felicia Perry. I am the Executive Director of the West Broadway Business and Area Coalition. We are a business association located in North Minneapolis. WBC, along with the Northside Economic Opportunity Network, otherwise known as NEON, we together partner to put on these luncheons. And what we do is each month we get together our business community in North Minneapolis. We'll have different experts in the room and folks on the panel to share experiences and knowledge. And it's really a great place to exchange information, learn a bit how to sustain and improve our businesses as entrepreneurs, as business owners, and even as community members. And then it's a great place to network as well. And so if you are joining us either in the Zoom or if you're joining us on Facebook Live, we encourage you to utilize the chat as that networking space. So we tell everybody to drop your business card in the chat, and that's basically your name, what business you're either owning and running or working for, and kind of what it does, and some contact information if you'd like. If you're one of the folks who want that follow-up information from us that we gather and send out to folks who participate, make sure that you go to the Eventbrite link that we'll have both in the chat on Facebook, and you can find on our Facebook pages, NEON and WBC's Facebook pages, in order to register. And once you register, that gets you on the list, and we send you the follow-up information. All right, so without further delay, I'm gonna go ahead and get this party started and turn it over to WBC's program manager, Brian McLaurin. Take it away, Brian.
Thank you very much, Felicia, and welcome to all of you and to all our panelists. I'm very excited about today's topic. Earlier this year in the month of January, we approached tax preparation from a technical standpoint with our professionals that we had on as panelists. Today, we're approaching it from a more practical standpoint. This will probably be the most relaxed session that we'll have this year because we're hoping that our panelists are willing enough to be transparent and share some of their experiences about what worked, what didn't work, as it pertains to their experiences with preparing for tax season and through business accounting. Let's get started. Let me first introduce to you our guest for today. Our first guest, and I ask your indulgence because I'll try not to have too much fun with this gentleman today, but I can't promise anything. Our first guest is KB Brown. KB Brown is the founder of Alpha Wear Apparel and co-owner of Wolfpack Promotionals LLC, a printing and apparel business open for over 6 years and located on West Broadway Avenue. Born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, both North and South, KB is a strong advocate for BIPOC businesses and the growth of businesses in North Minneapolis. KB sits on the boards of West Broadway Business and Area Coalition, Northside Economic Opportunity Network, and is a member of Main Street Alliance, Minnesota. KB, if you're out there, could you please give the people a wave? Thank you very much. Also joining us today is Mr. Larry Posey. Larry Posey joined the Northside Economic Opportunity Network as a business advisor in July of 2019. Prior to joining NEON, Larry served as a coordinator for a worldwide team of supplier quality engineers as a contract employee at Polaris Incorporated in Wyoming, Minnesota, the Research and Development Center in Wyoming, Minnesota. In addition to his duties at NEON, Larry holds the position of president and senior consultant at True North Consulting Group, LLC, a company he founded in September of 2017. His passion is guiding, inspiring entrepreneurs through the business startup process. He discovered this passion while serving as a business instructor and outreach facilitator with the Self-Employment Loan Fund in Phoenix, helping to start scores of successful businesses. He believes low-income people and minorities can achieve self-sufficiency and create wealth through self-employment if provided with training, technical assistance, and access to financial and social capital. Larry earned his undergraduate degree from Western Illinois University and received his MBA in Management and Strategy from Western Governors University. Larry resides in North Minneapolis and has one son, 7 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. He enjoys listening to music, traveling, biking, and reading. Larry, if you're out there, would you please wave to our audience today? Thank you, sir. Another group that I'm excited to be sharing this platform with today are from K's Revolutionary Catering. We have our very own Chef K Taylor and Mariam Omari on our panel for today. Chef K and Mariam are the proud owners of K's Revolutionary Catering, and they bring 35 years of culinary and restaurant experience to offer wholesome food that tastes great, and it does taste great. Home of the locally brewed Stay Well tonic and the award-winning catering services, K's Revolutionary provides communities with food that is good for the mind, body, and soul. Would you please wave to our audience today, Chef K and Mariam? Thank you very much. Last but certainly not least, we have Naomi Ramona Schliesman. She is an award-winning multimedia artist that has exhibited her work in New York, Chicago, Minneapolis-St. Paul, Pittsburgh, Brooklyn, Seattle, and across the Midwest. She received her BFA with an emphasis in sculpture from Minnesota State University, Moorhead, in 2004, and an MFA from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 2009. Schliesman has received a fellowship from Ragdale and Kimmel Harding Nelson Center for the Arts and was awarded second place for the Miami University Young Sculptors Competition for William and Dorothy Yeck Award, and was a elite finalist for the Society of Contemporary Craft Art Award. She has traveled abroad to Italy, Scotland, Ireland, France, United Kingdom, Netherlands, and Belize to study art and has done artist residencies at Vermont Studio Center. The Kimmel Harding Nelson Center for the Art, the Traveling Museum and Hospitalified Arts. She taught 2D and 3D design and was the gallery director for the School of Arts at Minnesota State University Moorhead from 2011 to 2013, and was the artist development director for rural programming at Springboard for the Arts in the Fergus Falls area from 2013 to 2020, where she managed the Hinge Arts at the Kirkbride residency program and taught the work of art business skills for artists workshops and mentored artists across the United States through artist career consultation. She currently serves on the Public Arts Commission for the City of Fergus Falls and the Minnesota Board. Naomi currently resides in Fergus Falls, where she lives with her 5-year-old daughter and continues her studio practice and freelance work, teaches art classes at the Kotiareen Galleries, and collaborates with artists and organizations nationwide. She is busy. Naomi, would you please wave to our audience today? Well, that's always the toughest part for me, just getting those out. So let's jump right in, because I really want our audience today to have an opportunity to hear from all of you and for you to share your experiences. So first question, and I wanted to phrase this because I think this is a good question to launch from, and I'm hoping everyone will offer some insight on it. So let's consider this. If you could counsel the younger version of yourself regarding preparing for tax season, what are some of the key points you would share in your approach to accounting in your line of business? And so why don't we go in the order of our introductions and start with KB?
The first thing that I would tell myself is something that we recently just found out. For every month that you are late, when you own a business, LLC, for every month that you are late filing your taxes, there's a penalty attached for each member of your organization. So if you have 2 people, there's a penalty times 2 monthly.
Wow.
Yeah, I just found it out myself.
Wow, good information. I think, Larry, I think you're up next, sir. You're muted, Larry.
Yourself off mute, Larry,
Yeah,
please.
there you go.
Sorry.
That's right.
One of the things that I certainly would consider, I've dealt with accounting, like I said earlier, since I was in high school, so I was very familiar with it. But one thing that I would advise people and I think about is you should really start preparing for tax season before the year starts. In other words, you should go into 2021 knowing what you're going to purchase, what some of your expenses might be, and plan accordingly. What happens is we get people that come in at the end of the year and they have a box full of receipts, and now all of a sudden they want to do their taxes. And you can't drive a car forward looking in the rearview mirror, and that's what happens when you have a box full of receipts, as opposed to having a traditional accounting system where you can get real-time information. So being prepared ahead of the tax year means that you can make, intelligent decisions about how you purchase things, how you use your expenses, all of those things. It just makes sense to do it ahead of time, not to wait till the end of the year and then try to figure it out, wish that you had purchased it at another time. So,
Mariam and Chef K, I saw you guys shaking your head like you agree with them. Can you all share some of your experiences?
Yeah, Larry is spot on.
Yes, he is.
Per usual. So I would definitely tell my younger self to not be afraid to admit what I'm good at and what I'm not, and to quickly delegate what I'm not good at and what would be a chore to me. Because it's one thing to lose and play with your money. It's another thing to play with the IRS. And I don't think nobody wants to play with them because they don't play nicely.
No, they do not.
So that would be my advice to my younger self.
Yeah.
And also to take the monies that you owe or are accumulating, figure out what that looks like, and have a separate account for that, and not be monkeying around with what ifs and I wills and what I think could happen. It needs to be there. If you die, it still needs to be there. So, it's just something that if you don't owe anybody else, you owe them.
Wow. Well, you guys are giving me everything I'm looking for today. Naomi.
I could actually talk to myself when I was younger and actually getting prepared to start selling my work and getting my work out there to others. I would most definitely talk about keeping better receipts of my operating costs and actually sitting down weekly or monthly or even quarterly to keep track of everything, as to what Larry was talking about, because having, back in the day, those box of receipts and trying to go through them and figure out where they go and what needs to happen with them takes up time and a lot of headspace and energy. And so just being upfront, like Larry said, about thinking about what type of system you're going to be using, even if it's just using your smartphone or making copies of your receipts, because receipts fade over time, and making sure that you have digital copies of those are crucial. And then the other thing that I learned when I was younger is having a separate bank account. Because a lot of times with people who are just starting out with a small business as making items or being an artist, a lot of times you try to do all the transfers through your own personal bank account, but actually it's important to get your own business account and have your own debit and credit card along with that as well. Because also the interest that occurs on those debit and credit cards too, you can also use for tax season as well, which I found out in a really rough situation. And then lastly is making sure, which Mariam and Chef K talked about, is making sure that you're setting aside that money that is owed and you don't touch that. You can't touch that. That's not yours. You got to remember that. And that you have that set aside so that when it's time to pay at tax season, you have that and you're not scrambling trying to find funds elsewhere.
Wow, I love the synergy that we've already created with our first question. I hope it continues. Let's keep going. You guys are giving me everything I was looking for, so I hope the audience is appreciative of this as well. Next question. What experiences can you share that has been a major influence around the methods you've adopted for keeping accounting records? And we'll follow our same order.
Say that again for me, Brian.
Oh, not a problem. What experiences in the past or present can you share that has been a major influence around the methods you've adopted for keeping accounting records? In other words, what in your line of business has influenced you in terms of the practices that you use today?
Marry a woman that knows how to do it. My wife is the meanest accountant that you can ever have. She actually does most of that, so I kind of follow instructions.
We love Katie.
Hey, I follow instructions when it comes to that. So,
Right.
um,
If I'm not mistaken, you may be able to use that answer again later, so you might want to keep that one.
hey, I'm a smart man.
Larry, what can you share with us?
I'm a believer. I always have been, since they came out with electronic accounting systems, in using that as opposed to trying to keep track of things in a spreadsheet. QuickBooks is great, but I certainly suggest that people understand accounting, because if you don't understand accounting and you're using QuickBooks, you can get into a lot of trouble. With my business, I do consulting, so my accounting is really pretty simple. But I'll just tell you from working with clients, it frequently happens that they don't do cost accounting. And for those of you who don't know, cost accounting is figuring out what it costs to produce your product or service. It happened that I had a client that was selling soap, and it turns out she was selling bars of soap, it's really nice soap for $5. The problem was that it cost $6.25 to make. But without doing the cost accounting and actually looking at the ingredients that went into it, she had no idea what it cost her to make it.
Wow.
So that's one insight, into accounting system, is to take the time to figure out what your product or service costs. And that should be the starting point for pricing it.
Thank you, sir. Mariam, Chef K, can you guys share with us?
Yeah, we definitely gonna piggyback off of what Larry said.
Yeah.
That's big. And I think Brian, initially you had said, this is like the non-technical side, right? Like the more casual conversation. And so I'd like to just kind of address people that are just starting a business and don't have money, or are using their own personal funds, to kind of get themselves started. That cost of goods and services is mandatory, and it should play a role. I would tell my younger self, it should play a role in the business you decide to do too, because maintaining those kind of responsibilities, like for us, we're caterers, right? We have a ton of different items we buy, and it's tedious, if you will.
Right.
So before we were able to afford an accountant, thanks to Neon, then NWBC, right? Then we were, which was a long stretch, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it wasn't that we had this accountant 6 months after we started or anything like that. So, we were taking these baby steps, and we definitely had bags of receipts. And Lloyd, she'll tell you that every evening, like before you go to bed, you should spend a few minutes, an hour, just entering in whatever you've accumulated for each day. But as a business owner, a small business owner, and depending on your strengths and your weaknesses, that's just not always a reality or a habit that's just easy to kind of get into. So I think it's really important that you read, and you read about whatever kind of electronic banking systems there are that are closest to free. They don't need to be perfect right away. And yep, you might make a couple errors, and yep, you might even owe them a couple dollars, but it won't be massive compared to you not doing anything. So I think that I would just really not be overwhelmed with oh, I have to have, but instead, how do I learn to manage what I can with what I have?
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a
Makes
lot of
sense.
sense. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Naomi, what can you share with us?
For me personally, what has been a major influence around finding a method that keeps my bookkeeping and accounting clean, and so that I can actually refer back and see what I'm doing is I've made sure that I have my invoices so that they are numbered now, so
Mhm.
that I know as I go through them where I need to go back to. Those invoices are dated as well. And then one thing that I love is having a smartphone. Typically, all of us can have our smartphone with us. And one of the free apps that I actually found that's been really useful for me, because with my own personal work, and then also doing contracted work right now as a freelance artist too, is that you have to send invoices and also sign contracts. And sometimes, before COVID, you were in person and you were signing these contracts, and automatically I would scan those. So I had those. And the app that I use for that is called Genius Scan. And it scans them right into a PDF on my phone. I can put it in a certain category and it's right there. And then I can also mail it off to me or anyone else that I need right away, which has been really nice to have. Especially if you're at home. I'm a single mom, and so to my 5-year-old, and so as well as if I have stuff that is coming in for a day while I'm working at home, and so if someone needs it right away, I can actually print it off on my printer, because I don't have a great scanner, but I do have my smartphone, and that's what's really saved me of being able to get these documents back out to people. And then the other thing is just making sure that I'm also reading over all of the invoices and contracts that I have, and making sure that all the numbers add up correctly as to what I should be being paid, also what my costs are that I'm incurring with it. So I can make sure, like Larry's talking about, that you're making a profit off of what you're doing. And before even coming up with the system for keeping track of everything, make sure you are actually going through and accounting all the expenses and operating costs, and then making sure that you're going to be making a profit off of it, so that you're not going to go in the red, which is really important. So those have been all very beneficial for me, and especially having, a busy life with that. So
Great points. I think, Larry started it off and you kind of re-emphasized the point. I think we're in business to make money. So it doesn't make sense to be paying out more than you're taking in. Man, you guys are hot. Let's keep it going. Next question. Describe an aspect of your accounting practices that you spend a greater portion of your time on, specifically because of your line of business. So we have guests from different lines of business, and we did that intentionally because we wanted to highlight maybe there's an aspect of your system that is more specific to what you do in your line of business. Can you guys please elaborate on that? Starting with you again, KB.
In our line of business, sales tax is our biggest is the biggest thing that we have to keep track of. We got our first sales tax audit, and we found out that there are a lot of things that we wouldn't think to tax that we have to pay our sales tax on. So sales tax is something we have to pay close attention to, because it can either be good or it can lead you into a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah, again, we don't want to play with the government's money. So
well, I mean, you got to think. So if I do a hard hat for you, say I put a logo on a hard hat, I have to charge tax for that.
wow.
If I do gloves for you, I don't have to charge tax for that.
Isn't that something? Just something that simple, from a hat to gloves.
Yeah, literally. So
Wow.
it's
Larry, what
one of
can
those
you
things
add?
that you got to pay attention to.
Oh, I apologize. Larry, what can you add to that question?
Well, just tagging on to what KB said, in his line of business, apparel is not taxed, but accessories are. So knowing what's taxable and what's not, we get clients often that have cleaning businesses, for instance. Well, in cleaning, you have to tax cleaning, especially commercial cleaning. But if you're doing residential cleaning, household chores like dusting, washing dishes, things like that, they're not taxed.
Wow.
mopping floors are. So you have to, you have to be keenly aware of what's taxable and what's not taxable so that you add that tax in and you don't get caught up at the end of the day. The other thing I'll say that about tracking, tracking businesses, business expenses and things is that a lot of our clients don't know what to track. And the point of it is you need to track anything that costs you money in generating that income. If you go to a business meeting, you need to track that mileage and you need to recoup the expenses for that mileage. The parking, if it's a business meeting, you need to track that, and you need to make sure that you're actually deducting for that expense. So anything that you do that is directly related to the generation of that income, it's deductible. Make sure you get it.
Oh, hey, you guys are blowing me out of the water here. Chef K, Mariam, what you guys? I know your line of business. You're gonna give me something juicy, so come on with it.
You're putting us on the spot. No,
Yeah.
but and Larry, what you saying that I kind of lost my train of thought there, but anyway, let's just answer the question.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, Larry's the head buster, not us. But for us is sale, like it's the county taxes. So like for each county, the tax rate changes. So if we have a delivery in Minneapolis versus St. Paul versus Egan, Edina, so forth, the tax rates changed. And so it's like, okay, trying to figure when we delivery fees.
Larry, the reason why you really want to track all these expenses is because then you pay less taxes at the end of the year. Like it's going against your income. So the goal is not to pay out more. You want to make the most income as possible. And that's the only way that it's going to happen. So you have to have plenty. You should be hungry to go get as many expenses as you can find. So then that way that income can go up. It might not be today, but tomorrow it's gonna look good for you. It's gonna look good.
Money showers.
Thank you all so
That's what we
much.
got, Brian.
Thank you so much. Naomi, what can you add?
Yes, I'm gonna piggyback off of what Larry says too, is like making sure to keep track of everything and understanding with the receipts. But one of the things that I have found that I spend a lot of time on in my practice, and even artists or people who are freelance workers too, is that you need to be writing on the receipts what it is for, what it's linked to, being if it is a business meeting, what business meeting was it? And then also making sure that's linked onto my Google Calendar as well for the date and time, and making sure that all of those receipts also have the information on it, so that if I have to go back and look at that, I understand where it's coming from and what date it was and why I was there and what I was working on. And so a lot of that is just keeping track of all those receipts and the mileages and linking it all together into the one system. And that takes up a lot of time. And I just know from my own experience of consulting too, with other artists, is that they don't want to utilize that time like that because it takes up so much of their time and their creativity and also business of doing work. But you really need to sit down and schedule that time out so that you're really doing that and linking everything together, because it really will pay off in the end.
Thank you all so much. From the sounds of it, look like you need to almost track everything. That's probably the perfect segue we have to our next question. Do you have an affinity towards a specific accounting software application because of the value that they add to your business?
Yes, we our affinity is toward. Everyone uses QuickBooks, but we love QuickBooks because QuickBooks has an add-on for self-employed, which allows you to track your mileage, take pictures of receipts. You can snapshots of receipts and everything that you need to kind of keep track of everything, and add them into invoices, send them right to your accountant. So
Perfect. Larry, what about you?
I definitely like QuickBooks. If you're a sole proprietor or consultant, you can use something that's free, as simple as Wave. Wave has some limitations being free. The nice thing about QuickBooks for KB is it also allows you to you can purchase a separate inventory piece to QuickBooks so that you can keep track of your inventory. You know what your inventory costs. So as you're selling stuff, you know how much of that sale price was the cost of goods sold, which is important, in any kind of business where you're selling a product. You need to know what it costs you to purchase that product or to produce that product. So
that kind of goes back to your earlier point about, making sure that you're pricing your stuff correctly, and not coming in, under what it costs you to what you're earning, and not coming in under over your cost of goods sold, I should say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can generate generate cash flow projections with QuickBooks. You can, produce your income statements. If you need 1099s, you can do that right from QuickBooks. W-2s, there's a special form that you use. You have to order it, but you can actually produce your W-2s right from that. You can do everything from QuickBooks, but you really need to understand the basics of accounting. For instance, if you make a payment on an invoice, if you don't go in the invoice window and make the payment from the invoice window, it will just screw everything up. So you enter in an invoice, you make the payment from the invoice window, and everything works smoothly. If you just decide to write a check, from the payment window and pay that invoice, it will not figure it out. I've had this happen with many clients. So you got to be careful how you use it and understand how it works. So you know what's going on behind the scenes. Because they say it's as easy as writing a check, and it is, but you need to know what's going on behind the scenes.
Mariam, Chef K, what application do you all lean toward?
Like everyone said, we lean towards QuickBooks, but QuickBooks is, like Larry saying, if you don't know what you're doing, QuickBooks is more for, I feel, it's more for people who are a little advanced with their accounting skills. However, it is somewhat user friendly if you have an idea of if you're a savvy kind of person in general. So for me, QuickBooks was like easier for me to navigate and whatnot, but there's some little nuances that I don't get, hence why you need an accountant or somebody who knows what they're doing for QuickBooks. But when we started off, and I still use this, but I would say, for when you're smaller, and PayPal is a nice engine to use too. It's a nice tool because you can do invoicing on PayPal. It accepts payments. You can receive and send money, and it keeps track of all of your transactions. Every single last invoice, money received, anything, PayPal keeps track of it. And when they see that you're making some money and things, you've your activity, it is what they consider, you're making money, you're booming and you're moving and shaking, if you will. They offer like capital, what I'm saying, for your business, and which is was it free?
It's really cool because it's a small percentage, but they take it out of your sales.
Yeah, they take it directly out of your sales. And with PayPal, just like QuickBooks or any other engine that you can like accept and take payments, the same percentage, it's like 2%. So it's the same thing, but it's for folks that are just starting off or small. It's free, it's easy. You don't need a monthly, you don't have to pay for a monthly subscription, any of that. So
I mean, just the fact that you highlighted that, I did not know PayPal had those capabilities. So that's
Yeah.
good
PayPal's
information.
real good.
Oh,
And
um,
PayPal
Square does too.
also connects, like if you have a website and want to take payments through your website, you can connect that, it connects to your website too. So it's real nice.
thank you so much. Naomi, who?
And I mean, let's be real too, like all of us have talked about that. Some of us don't understand, certain technology or software, where I've consulted with some people who sometimes don't even use a computer. And so some of the things that I would advise is actually trying to start with Excel sheets and making sure that you have expenses, cash flow, and creating your own system if you're not comfortable with using the software. But also too is reaching out to an accountant too and asking them to help guide you, or even finding a friend or a family member to sit down with you and even do the step-by-step of the QuickBooks. In QuickBooks, they have different types of plans that you can purchase too on a monthly basis. So if it's not working for you, you can actually find a different software program that would work better. Some of the other ones that I just want to mention is called Everlance, and that's a mileage and expense app that you can get on your phone. That's for free. Also, the Genius Scan that I brought up earlier, that one's for free as well. And so there's other ways that you can, start doing it in little steps and trying to figure it out, but making sure that you're saving everything. And keeping track of everything is really important. And then once you get that confidence of knowing that you feel comfortable with software, then make that next step and just find someone to help you, to sit down with you and go through that. And, one of the great things with that too is like there are consultants out there that you can work with to help you with those one-on-one, sessions to get familiar with that.
Thank you all so much. I noticed we've had a few questions from our audience, and I want to make sure we get to them. So in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of wrap these last two questions together, and you all can kind of answer one and then use the other to kind of close yourself out. The first question is, did you discover at any point that it was of some benefit to your organization to outsource aspects of your practice to an accounting agency? And then the closeout question is, please summarize how your accounting practices have evolved over time due to business growth or changes within your organization.
So we found that not having an accountant look at our books before we started, and once we were like 5 years in, we realized that there were mistakes that we made early on. And it literally costs more for you to have an accountant clean it up. So if you can have an accountant clean up your books now and make sure that that all of your stuff is set right, your categories are set right, that you're entering stuff correctly, at the beginning will help you. When you get to where you're actually leveling up and you're making money of some sort, we found that it's necessary for you to have an accountant so that your business can evolve. And frankly, I'm not an accountant, I'm a printer. So I'm going to trust the accountant to tell me where I need to correct things to make money. Sometimes I call Larry, but
there you go, Larry. There's your segue.
Well, I just like to say that people should understand that bookkeeping and accounting are different. That bookkeeping is more about doing the day-to-day transactions, a sale, recording a sale, recording an expense. Accountants actually look at the bookkeeping records and then analyze them. They prepare financial statements. They can give you advice as to how you should, adjust things, or if expenses are too high or whatever. But one of the things that I tell people, when do you decide to outsource it? You take a look at what you feel your hourly time is worth. If it's $50 an hour, $75 an hour, whatever you could be generating somewhere else rather than doing books.
Mhm.
And then you look at how many hours you actually spend on accounting. And you weigh that. You just say, hey, you know what? I can get this done for $300 a month, but it's costing me in time about $400. It's time to let somebody else do it.
Makes a lot
You know,
of sense.
that's really the way to measure that. And one final point, though, I would make is make sure, and KB touched on it, make sure that you have someone set up your chart of accounts so that you have accounts for each of the things that you need to track. It's very important to do that. But I also suggest that anyone who has a business, take a little accounting. You know, it's not difficult. If you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, you can do accounting. Just a matter of knowing your right hand from your left hand, debit and credit. That's it.
There you go. Mariam, Chef K, what are your experiences?
I think that for us, I just want to make sure I have the question right. Can you just repeat
Absolutely.
the question?
First question was, did you discover at any point that it was of some benefit to your organization to outsource aspects of your practices to an accounting agency? And then the last question was summarize how your accounting practices have evolved over time due to your business growth in your organization.
Well, we definitely were anxious to delegate and get an accountant. That is probably one of the most.
She said anxious.
Yeah, man. It's awful. Like,
Yeah,
it's dreadful. This time of the year, you know, you should be looking forward to the spring coming, but I'm like, is he knocking on the door? You know, I'm like always feeling stopped, you know. So I highly suggest that you get them people as far away from you as possible. That's just my opinion. I'm just so serious, you know. So I even told our new accountant, I'll give you a hiring bonus just to make sure you take my shit serious. I won't be back here until you need me to sign something. Like, I'm so over it. So it's tough, you know, it's tough. Delegate, delegate, delegate. You know, everything that every panelist on here has said is true and relevant. You know, start small. Don't let it get overwhelming. You'll get grades. So just
a few grades have popped
up. Just take it slow and track everything. Just think of your receipts as money. That's really what they are. They're your cash, you know. And if you're throwing cash out the window, you probably shouldn't be in business. You know what I mean? Like, you should really evaluate that fact, you know. So every receipt you have is cash. It just is future cash, you know. It's like, so you got to hold on to these things and just start asking questions, hang out with people that know more than you do, you know what I mean? And yes, you will need to learn the basic accounting, just like Larry said, because you might mess around and give your money to somebody and they steal it, you know what I mean? So you do want to know what's going on, but you know, stay in your lane, you know. And the minute you can, even if you have to save up $12 every event that you do until you have the money to get an accountant, do that, so that you don't have to be two different business owners. You're not an accountant, so let that go, you know, unless that's what you do. Let it go. And it should be a top priority.
Thank you so much for that. Naomi, you want to close us out on this one?
Yes. I needed a Larry in my life about 7 years ago. And I was just like, I'm done. I can't. I need this. And I found an incredible accountant here in rural Minnesota that I've been working with. And she also works with nonprofits and artists. So she has just been crucial for me, and I know other organizations and artists as well in greater Minnesota, of being able to call and ask her questions and actually knowing what we need to know ahead of the game before each tax season. And then what has been really beneficial about that is that just understanding that how much time and dedication I was putting in of doing the record and bookkeeping like Larry talked about, but then also like trying to file at the end of the year then, and just wanting to pull out those gray hairs that have been sprouting up because it's so much. And so just really making those connections and asking around as to who you can also be working with. And who's been really influential and helpful with others to understand what they need to be keeping track of for that. And then with me, also with being an artist and a lot of people who are makers and entrepreneurs within their business, is really understanding your growth as to where you are making money. And maybe it's not where you first initially thought you would be making money, being as to products that you're selling or even services that you're providing, and really understanding where that cash flow is coming in, and maybe having to make some adjustments into your business plan as what you first initially thought you wanted to do. That as you've grown and have seen the progress of understanding what the customer consumers really want, has been really beneficial for me as well. And I know other artists too.
Wow, thank you all so much for answering those questions. We do want to open it up to our audience for some of the time we have left. A couple of questions that I already have, and any one of you can chime in on this. I imagine the answers are going to be kind of universal. The first question we have is coming from a young lady that I know, Kobe. Is there a checklist of the types of receipts you should be keeping for tax purposes?
Keep all your receipts.
There you go.
Keep them all,
Everything.
copy them all. If you have a smart printer, like a HP smart printer or something like that, they have, you can download an app to that printer, take a picture of your receipt. It'll upload to your printer and you can just print it off, you know, so you can keep it for your records either way it go, electronically or otherwise. Just keep everything. Copy everything.
Let the accountant decide how it gets categorized.
That's not your
That's
job.
not your job.
If you're not an accountant, that is.
Yeah.
Well, actually, many of the software programs, QuickBooks does it, Wave, which is free accounting system. You can actually scan it in with your phone, and it occasionally you may have to tell it, but most of the time it already knows where it goes. And it pulls it straight into your accounting system where it's supposed to be. So there's no excuse.
That makes it easy for people like me.
And Naomi made a good point. I think it was Naomi or was it Kay, that those receipts actually fade.
Yeah, I remember that. All right, I know we had another question. Give me a second so I can find it. I believe it was from
I do have the other question, but Larry answered it in the chat. But I think it's worth kind of elevating as well. Kathleen asked, she said, new business person here. Hey, Kathleen, new business person here. How do you keep track of the investments you make in your business? For example, taking a women venture class, purchasing a computer, etc. She said that she has QuickBooks and she's good at entering her receipts, but gets a little bit confused when how to handle owner's equity and what needs to be tracked to actually put into the business. And so, Larry, did you want to kind of address that verbally?
Yeah, quickly. I did it in the chat, but I'll quickly for everyone else. Anytime you take money from your personal account and invest it in the business, that increases the owner's equity. That increases your investment in the business. Now, some people will skip a step and they'll actually just purchase it out of their own personal funds. Not the best way to do it. You're better off taking, $100 or $200 or whatever you need to put into your account. And then you can just go ahead and put that down as an additional investment. And then when you purchase it, then it becomes an asset of the business, or you can expense it off as, I bought a computer and expense it off the first year, as long as it's smaller things like that. So that way you can keep track of your additional investments in your business as opposed to just buying it out of your pocket and trying to fix it later.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So Larry, do you use a business account? Say you have a business card?
Yes.
Do you use a business card for that purchase?
That's the best way to do it, is to keep it coming from your business account. Your business account's low, instead of paying for it out of your pocket, take the money, put it into your business account so you have funds, and then and that's the clean way to do it, because it becomes an additional investment, and then it becomes a purchase from the business purchases, not you. If that makes sense.
Perfect.
It keeps it nice and neat.
We have a couple more questions, and I'll ask. How long is a receipt valid? Are years? Is it a certain number of years that it's too late to expense a purchase?
You can amend your tax returns generally for 3 years, if memory
our
serves me.
Our accountants say keep them for 5.
Yeah, but I'm saying you can actually, the receipt is important, because if you didn't expense it off, you can go back and redo that, amend it, I think for 2 years or 3 years. I can't remember which right offhand. Is it, pardon me?
I think it's 3.
Yeah, I think it's 3.
It is 3.
So you definitely want to keep the receipt longer than that, but for purposes of expensing it off, go back, you can redo your taxes. I mean, if it's $50, it might not be worth doing that. But if you have a lot, you know, if it's a significant amount, I definitely would suggest you do it and recoup that.
Mm-hmm.
We have a growing entrepreneur out here who would like to know, how do you go about getting business credit by not using your own personal Social Security number?
Now, somebody else may have an answer other than this. It's almost impossible, because when you first start a business, the credit of the business is you. They're going to want you to be personally responsible for whatever you borrow. You know, you're going to have to guarantee it. And at some point, the business develops its own line of credit. But when you first start, hey, they're going to come looking for you for that money. They're not going to loan you any money unless you're going to be personally responsible for it. That's just.
I want to know if somebody got another answer to that, because I mean, I need some business credit.
Also, what I will say is, yes, in traditional banking, as somebody who formerly was a commercial loan officer, so what I did was business loans, and often what would make a loan, what make or break me being able to give it is a person's willingness to put their home up as collateral. And every single commercial loan that we did at this particular financial institution required a personal guarantee. And let us find out that there's multiple owners. We want everybody to personally guarantee that loan. It's typically how it goes. That is the system that has been created, and that is what they call best practices. Now, I think it's helpful for folks to kind of understand that there are other kind of financial things, but if you're really trying to do this thing around build business credit, that is the particular system in which most people have to enter into in order to do that, which gets us back to these conversations about, like, how do we actually build wealth, and what if you've been shut out of being able to wealth build? But like, this is how the system is set up right now, you all.
And just to tag on to that, Felicia, one of the things that Neon does when we do loans, we hope to be doing bigger loans. And one of the things we did at the Self-Employment Loan Fund, this is micro lending, it's non-traditional lending. We reduce our risk in other ways. So we might give you credit without any collateral, just based on, you know, your business plan and what we think the feasibility of it is. And we did that at Self-Employment Loan Fund. We didn't require any collateral up to $3,000, you know, but if you wanted any more than that, then you had to have collateral. So those are non-traditional lending sources. And you can build your business credit that way if they're reporting to the credit reporting agencies. So that's another option.
I wonder too, is there, like, because Chef and I have been dealing with this recently, because you know, you can also pull out credit cards, right? And now the interest rate would be a lot higher, you know, but the money shouldn't really be there to be used more than it should just be there to establish a line of credit. I have kind of tapped into a little bit of, there are some more deeper ways you can produce lines of credit, you know, via your statuses. So like, you're more credible as a business if you're Black owned certified, you know, women owned certified, which is things that you have to go through the SBA, you know, and make sure you have a DUNS and DUNS number and la. So I mean, that's probably for another panel discussion, but it's nearly impossible, but you can start to at least have something tangible if you have some funds. You got money. You can't just,
Yeah.
they're not gonna like, oh yeah, this sounds like great. It's not gonna happen. You gotta have, if you don't own a house, you still gotta have money. They want to see that you can cover whatever you're asking for.
Right. Thank you all so much. Let's give our panelists a big hand. You guys were great today. You definitely exceeded my expectations, and we appreciate you so much for taking time out of your busy days. For any questions that we may have missed, you can still submit them, and we'll try to get an answer and provide a resource list later. Again, thank you all. I'm going to turn it back over to Felicia Perry, who will close us out with final remarks.
Okay, all right, so making sure that I am unmuted. So thank you again, as Brian said, thank you to all of our panelists. I appreciate all of our participants for joining in with us live today, those who are watching on Facebook Live. This video will be on WBC's Facebook feed, so that if you want to go back, if you didn't catch something, you can go back and watch. Additionally, we will be capturing, I think I've captured all of the questions and all of the resources already today, but we'll make sure that we capture all of those resources that were mentioned or dropped into the chat. And we'll be following up with everyone who registered with that information. And so if there's any other questions that people have that we didn't get to cover today, make sure you send us an email, either Neon or WBC, and we will see about getting those questions answered for you. Let's see, next month's Northside Business Luncheon will be planning, zoning, and development. I encourage everybody to come to that one. We get really excited about that one as well because we get to hear updates on developments. And if you remember last year, we heard from the Satori development, the Capri, I'm going to tour the Capri soon, the Capri development. We've got new developments coming that we want to add to that roster of updates next month. So if you're interested in what's happening north side, what developments are happening here on the corridor, the Northside Business Luncheons are a great place to come and find that information out. And